Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be inspired by a guest whose life journey is as extraordinary as the stories she tells. Not just an author, she's a force of nature whose words have resonated with readers across the globe, earning her multiple awards. Her latest masterpiece, Junkyard Girl, a memoir of ancestry, family secrets, and second chances, became a #1 Amazon bestseller and has already swept up 8 prestigious awards. This riveting memoir unveils the astonishing revelation that at age 57, she discovered she was adopted, a truth hidden from her by an extended family of 63 first cousins. Her courageous exploration of identity and belonging has captivated the hearts and minds of countless readers. But before she became a literary sensation, she was a creative powerhouse in Hollywood. Imagine being the artistic mind behind the editing of iconic films like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Three Men and a Little Lady, and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Her talent for storytelling through film set her apart as a visionary, someone who could shape the way we see the world, frame by frame. Yet her brilliance extends far beyond the editing room. She's an international speaker, a certified expert in traditional Chinese medicine, and a passionate advocate for the incredible bond between humans and animals. Her groundbreaking books, Dog as My Doctor, Cat as My Nurse, and Pause for the Good Stuff, reveal how our four-legged friends can be powerful allies in our pursuit of health, happiness, and a truly extraordinary life. Her work has been described as a delightful blend of scientific research and heartfelt storytelling, a real literary dance that touches the soul. Now, she's been named PETA's sexiest vegetarian over 50. However, she's more than just an advocate. She's a beacon of compassion in the animal advocacy community. As an ambassador and animal protection of New Mexico and the founder of the Animal-Human Health Connection, she has dedicated her life to showing us how our relationship with animals can transform us in ways we never imagined. She is living proof that life can be an extraordinary tapestry woven with passion, purpose, and love. Please join me in welcoming the incomparable Carlyn Montes De Oca. To get your free copy of 5 Ways Our Pets Inspire Us to Live Healthier, Happier, and More Extraordinary Lives, head over to animalhumanhealth.com and download your free copy today. Carlyn, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show.
Thank you. My goodness, what an introduction. I'm so I'm like, I want to listen to that.
Carlyn, I want to dive into it with you here. Your journey from full-time editing to becoming a full-time author. What inspired you to make a significant change, leaving LA, the editing room floor, to picking up the pen?
Yeah, that was quite a transition, but I had worked in the film industry for 20 years. I mostly had worked as an assistant editor, an associate editor on teams where there were, a big editing team, and I worked on the movies that you mentioned. And when I first got out of film school in Los Angeles, I was so excited. Oh my goodness, I got to work for George Lucas. This is so incredible. But what I didn't know was that the film business can be a really tough taskmaster. And the hours were long, the stress was high, the personalities that you worked with could sometimes be challenging. And it was always exciting to get on a show for 2 weeks. And then suddenly it would hit you how hard this was going to be. There are many times I worked 27-hour days or slept in the editing rooms at night. And one day I remember going to the doctor and he asked me, "What kind of work do you do? Because your stress levels are, out of here. I don't know, maybe you need to make a change." And I had to think about that. Also, my eating habits were poor. I never exercised, and I hardly got any sleep. So that's when I made this shift out of the movie business into the thing that had helped me through the movie business, which was acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. I used to get treatments from this fabulous acupuncturist in Los Angeles, and they saw me through these really trying times. So I thought to myself, I'm going to give it a summer and study this and see if I like it. And boy, did I like it. It was amazing information and knowledge, ancient knowledge that was being imparted to the students as they got their master's degree, which is what we call kind of this advanced degree in the United States.
Wow. And do you practice any of the traditional Chinese medicine today, not necessarily just on yourself, but on, as a practice?
Yes, well, the thing is, I started my career for 20 years. I did the movie stuff. For another 15 years, I did all of the acupuncture, traditional
Mhm.
Chinese medicine, and then I launched into my third career, which is now being an author. So I have now I do have a degree in traditional Chinese medicine, but I no longer practice, though I do practice on myself, my husband, and my dog. All three of us get the benefit of that.
Now, do you find that any of your previous experiences, whether it be in the film industry or in the traditional Chinese medicine, help influence the way that you write and storytell?
Everything. There was a time I worked for a man named Jonathan Lawton, who was the creator, or who he wrote Pretty Woman, the movie Pretty Woman, and Under Siege, and he was, directed and whatnot. And I remember I was trying to do all of my animal advocacy at the same time that I was the executive. I forget what he called me, but I was kind of in charge of his production company. And I remember wrangling him in one day and saying, "Hey, I have to go walk all these dogs at this animal rescue. Do you want to come with me?" And I think he felt a little pressured, but he said, "All right, I'll come with you." And we had this talk, and he said to me, Carlene, there's got to be something bigger that you can do besides just walking dogs. There's something you can do with what you know and what you can create that would help them in a much bigger way. And that's when I came up with, well, then I moved into Chinese medicine, and I saw that when I spoke with people, it was amazing because when I was working in the editing room, I would just be editing film and putting things together and images. There was no great depth to what I was really learning in terms of my own inner well-being or spirit. And when I sat there with people who had so many health complaints, everything from colds to cancer, and they would share these incredible stories, I was getting to know people and what would turn into characters later in a much more depthful way that gave them complexity. So I find that both of these careers have really helped me in my writing.
And when we talk about these characters and we talk about this journey, which is amazing. Now, your book, Dog is My Doctor and Cat as My Nurse. Now, these explore the powerful bonds between humans and animals. And we talk about these characters that you've met from colds to cancer. What was the moment that first opened your eyes to the healing potential of the connection?
I remember it very clearly because I would sit in my practice. What happens is people think, well, you come in for acupuncture, you just stick in needles. And no, that's not a good practitioner would sit and talk to somebody, and you're seeing what they're coming in for, the complaint. So my shoulder hurts, or I have digestive issues, or I have heart problems. But what you're really trying to do is find the root cause of these things. Because when those people get better or they feel better from those things, if the root cause is still there, it may come back in some form. So I was always digging for that. And I started to see that people would come in to see me who didn't know me at all. So they did not trust me. They didn't know me, but they had heard maybe something good. And they came in and they would sit there with their arms crossed. And they usually sit there not really connecting. And I was doing my best to connect. And what I saw was that as soon as they started speaking about their companion animals at home, their dogs, their cats, their horses, suddenly the smile would come up. They'd uncross their arms, they'd laugh, they'd cry. And all of these things, I'm thinking to myself as a practitioner, oh my God, this is amazing because I now know that person with high blood pressure, their blood pressure just went down. I know that there are amazing, powerful, and these hormones that we have in our body that create well-being, those are now coming up, and cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is now decreasing. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. They're just telling me a story about their animal. They're not even with the animal. And that's when I started putting two and two together. And I'll just share that the way I came up with the title was because I had 6 rescue animals at home. And one day I'm walking one of them and I thought, I think this is a good idea for a book. This idea that animals can help us live healthier and happier and, all of the different ways like these people are explaining. And then it suddenly occurred to me when I looked at my dog, I thought, dog is my doctor. And then I went home because it was about a 4-hour hike and I was laying in bed and my cats jumped on my back and each one of them took a spot where I have back issues. And I thought, cat is my nurse. So my animals at the time contributed to the title of my book.
I love that story. And I think that when a lot of people look at acupuncture, you're 100% right. Let's go stick some needles in my face or my arm and relieve some pain. But what you're really saying is that that's part of it, and we're looking for the cause. But the other piece, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a little bit of therapy. We're lying down, we're doing our acupuncture bit. And as you said, a good practitioner will sit there and talk to you. And it becomes kind of this cathartic moment of therapy while this individual is lying on your table with some needles in them.
It's true. And even I remember one time, technically to charge insurance for acupuncture, you have to stick in one needle, technically. So I remember a woman came in and pretty much cried the whole session. And I'm like, well, I have to do a couple of needles here. But yeah, there was something also I was explaining to somebody that I had a beautiful office that I made just this very peaceful, sacred, calm, rejuvenating place. So people would say they would just walk in and already start to feel better. And I think it was time and time again that it's just the ambience, the environment, the ability to just say whatever it was that you needed to say or do. And the needles, of course, it was a pretty powerful time in my life.
I love that you said that. I have so many more questions about acupuncture now. When we look at your books, though, you highlight how pets can help us lead healthier and happier lives. What are some of the most surprising or unexpected ways animals can improve our health?
Well, I'll start by saying that my feeling about health isn't just physical health. It isn't
Mhm.
just headache. It isn't just digestive issues. That's physical health. But true health to me is physical health, emotional, mental health, and even kind of at the level of the spirit, whatever that means for you. So I guess what would I be surprised at? I never underestimate an animal's intelligence and the fact that I don't understand it completely. I just see that they do extraordinary things, and I'm always stand back in a little bit of awe and appreciation for that. But
Okay.
I guess I'm thinking right now about a story about a woman whose husband had Parkinson's disease, and he was pretty much sitting in a chair all the time and unable to, with Parkinson's, you have difficulty expressing emotions or speaking or moving. And of course, she felt horribly sad. This was the love of her life. And she wasn't, as a caretaker, doing what she needed to do for herself. And one day it was her cat. Her cat followed her on a walk and went with her the entire time. And we always associate dogs as walking with people, but this cat went. And what this cat did was because other neighbors saw her, they'd come and speak to her, people who had never spoken to her before. And she would start feeling happier. And then she'd go home. And this happened day after day after day. And then one day she was feeling particularly sad and couldn't go. And the cat got up on the counter and
Yeah.
she had a necklace and just smacked it. She started smacking it and she was chasing the cat and she realized the cat wants to go we're going to go on a walk. And she said to me, cats are better than Prozac. If we didn't have them, they would help her husband because the comfort and the heaviness and the heft of these animals would make him feel better. And of course, that purring is extremely, extremely healing. So this is a story to me that shows physical health, mental, emotional health, and even at the level of the spirit, what an animal can do, especially when you have a bond with them that's close.
You had mentioned cats purring, and I want to ask you this. What do you feel that it is about the cats purring or when they're on your back and doing the kneading with their little their nails
Mhm.
there? Why is that so soothing to us as humans?
I don't remember the exact frequency, but purring actually is at a frequency that is very healing to cats. In
Mm,
fact, there is something that cats feel that vets say from a very long time ago about how purring can actually help heal a cat, heal internal issues they have, their bones with bone healing. And I always look at so with each so they will purr because they're comfortable, or
right.
they're will purr because they're at ease. You know, you hold them and they're purring, and that actually, I believe, translates to you, that frequency. I mean, because it is energy. I mean, energy frequency is energy. So why wouldn't it translate to a human being? Somebody told me once that purring is like the heartbeat of the earth. That's how calmed this person felt, especially after they had, I mean, it was somebody who was suffering from, I believe, depression or anxiety. So I just know from personal experience, when those cats got on my back, every time they got on my back, I would just fall asleep and just calm down. And I remember also talking to somebody who was from Hawaii and said that her aunties would, whenever the children would have a stomach ache, would take the cat and a kitty and just put them on their digestive, on their stomach, and it would ease their digestion. So I would think that would be very helpful, because what is it doing but calming the body, just calming that sympathetic nervous system.
I love that you said that. I mean, and I think a lot of people out there who might not be as literary with animals or pet care is that, you hear a cat purring, oh, it's nice, it's relaxing, it likes you, it's comfortable, and they're doing it for attention. When the reality is that they're doing it for themselves, calming themselves down, resetting themselves to take on their, 23 hours of a nap and 2 hours of running outside time.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. And this is what I always, I call it the animal human bond. We've heard that. And the more you are connected to your animal friends, if you're not paying attention, then it's really not going to help. But if you're actually paying attention and trying to take your bond beyond, that's my pet, I feed them once a day, I let them go out to if you want to take that into a deeper relationship, just like you would have with another human, pay attention to those moments. Pay attention to what your animals may be trying to tell you. And in those moments when they're purring, yesterday I don't have a cat right now, but I was taking care of a friend's cat, and I was just watching him just go against me and slide against me and purr. And I'm thinking to myself, great, well-being, here I am, and, holding him and taking it in, because, we live in a stressful world. We live in a difficult world. And any of those moments, if your cat allows it, your cat may not like to be hugged, in which case don't do it. But if they're offering that, and I'm sure if you have a close bond, they enjoy being next to you as well.
And you're the founder of the Animal Human Health Connection, and you're very passionate for the advocate of animal welfare. How does how does this relate to, let's say, someone goes on your website or calls you up, they really don't understand. What's kind of the first thing that you guide them to?
Well, it depends some people do better on a one-on-one consultation, and so I would speak to them. But what I would say is, dog is my doctor, cat is my nurse. I would say go read that first, because you will get so much information. At least this is what readers tell me, that they say, gosh, it's so much more than I ever thought it was going to be. And that's when questions really come. Some of your questions will be answered. And I think also the following two books, Pause for the Good Stuff, those are gratitude journals that allow you to have more of a deeper relationship with your pets, because your gratitude is a very powerful practice that is actually easy, and it takes very little time, but so few people do it or understand the power of that. So I came up with those books because I saw that a lot of my clients were saying, I don't have time, and I don't have anything to be grateful for. And I think, well, you love animals, so there's going to be lots of things you can find to be grateful for. So I encourage people to do those on their own. But of course, if they feel, I want to have a one-on-one, I want to talk to somebody, I am here. And, I'm sure you will share my website at the end, or how people can connect with me. Or again, another thing I want to say is that I go to a lot of talks. I talk at schools, I talk in community centers, I've spoken internationally. So if anybody wants to arrange a talk for me, I'm happy to be there.
Now, when we talk about your talks here, I mean, you talk about the schools, the communities, your TED Talks about, and you're out there talking about the animal human health connection. What message do you hope that people leave with?
So many messages, but I'll start with that the animals in your home can be some of the most powerful health and wellness gurus that you can imagine. If you really stop and pay attention and become mindful and just watch and just spend a few minutes every day in this kind of state, you will see your life transform. But I also want to add that when you do this, also start thinking of the other animals that are out there. You know, there's more than when I ask people, are you an animal lover? And they say yes, but they don't really distinguish between a dog or a cow or a cat and a pig. And yet, all of these animals are sentient beings that
Mhm.
feel love and joy and fear and pain, and they experience a wide range of emotions that we feel. So I guess I would encourage people to just stop and think of those animals, because when I think of animal advocacy, I think that those are the animals in many ways that need us more.
Now, when you sit down to write with all of this information and passion that you have, how do you approach it to weave the elements together to create a narrative that's informative, touching, educational, and just kind of an eye opener?
Well, I don't, well, maybe that comes into play, everything you've just asked a little while down. Usually for me, it is something just keeps nagging at me to write. Something, and it's usually something that's going on in my life. For example, I never thought to write Junkyard Girl until I was hit with this unbelievable news of, boy, you're adopted and nobody ever told you at age 57. So to me, writing is also healing for me. It helps me make sense of something that I need to make sense about or I want to understand better. So my only thing in any book I'm ever going to write, there is going to be the animal human bond in some way or another. And it will be probably something I know very deeply. For example, my next book, it's for those cat lovers. So it's a story and it is based on a personal story, but it features a cat. And I always look at, what do cats need from me besides telling a cute story about a cat? What do cats need? So there's a lot of feral cats out there. And this cat is feral, and also talking about the animal human bond and how he helps the heroine in this story and how he actually helps a lot of people. But just like animals do, we don't always notice that they're helping us. They just do.
And when is that book going to be ready?
Well, isn't that the question? My hope is that what we call the discovery draft, which is the first draft. Oh, I'm so hoping it'll be done by Sunday.
Okay. Now, you had actually mentioned Junkyard Girl, and I want to talk to you about this. You discovered that you were adopted at age 57. And for a lot of people, this can be life altering or a revelation. Did this discovery change or challenge your sense of identity?
Oh my gosh, yes. I have, for people that haven't been through this experience, and I would have been one of them, except it happened to me. It is very hard to explain, even though I wrote a whole book about it. The it is like you are in the biggest earthquake you have ever imagined. Everything is unstable because if you think about it, your parents, your family, that's usually the foundation of everything you build after that. The Your friends, your career, everything is built on that. So when that gets shaken and maybe fractures, everything you starts to not have the stability it once had, and you start, at least for me, boy, that shook me in many ways. I consider myself a pretty strong person. I think of myself as, well, you don't cry a lot. I mean, you cry when things happen, but but every other minute, when after I found out this information, I was crying. I'd tie my shoes, I'd cry, I'd wash the dishes, I'd cry. I couldn't believe how I felt like it was a Molotov cocktail of emotion just moving through me, one after the other, a little bit of betrayal and you know, loss and grief and disappointment, so many things.
What was the most difficult part for you of writing Junkyard Girl?
The most difficult part I think would be I wanted to be fair because when you write a memoir, it's your point of view.
Mhm.
And you've probably heard the situation where five people witness a car accident and everybody has a different point of view of what happened. Well, if other people had written this book, they would have written it differently. So I wanted to be very fair about what I was writing. And I wanted to be fair to my parents. And I think that was the hardest part. So I just went over it and over it and over it and until I couldn't anymore. And I did get some input from my siblings
Mhm.
to make sure. But because my parents, they were tough. And I know some people kind of feel pretty angry towards, especially my mother in the book, though I do not. That was just the truth of the situation and how things happened. And I wanted to be fair. So I think that it was the most difficult part, finding that balance.
When you look at your 63 first cousins and your siblings, has your relationship altered or been affected by what you've discovered?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so, for me personally, I find it's very important. I need to know the truth. I don't care if
Mhm.
the truth is bad. I want to know. And I think that in relationships, I don't like to keep secrets. I like to be honest with my friends, with my husband, with my family. And now that the secret was revealed and the truth was told and conversations were had, I think all our relationships became stronger, all of them.
Good.
Even the difficult conversations, especially with my sister, I remember she was pretty amazing. She was there for me no matter what. And I'd have to text her or call her 3 times a day to make sure because there was this, I didn't understand it how I felt as though I'd been severed from my family who had been my family, who had raised me, and I was the youngest. And I kept wanting to make sure she was still there. She was still there, and she was. And she talked to me at length and answered the same questions over and over and over again and was so patient about it all. But there were conversations I had to have with them. And my sister, I know, feels to this day, I believe we did the right thing because we promised we wouldn't say. And they felt they were trying to protect me. And I keep saying, it's my life. It was my life. I needed to know the truth. And we may disagree on that, but we have the conversations. And that's what's important that we hear each other. We hear what each other's point of view is. So all of my cousins reached out to me afterward and couldn't tell me enough how much they loved me and how much I was part of the family and how much I would always be their cousin. So I think the truth sets you free.
When we talk about, learning about this information at this type of age and or at any age really in families keeping that secret, when you wrote this book, did it help you come to terms with your parents and family's decisions to keep the secret?
Yes, I feel that by the end of that book, after all of the editing, after it was really done, that was an honest account. And I feel this is what I always encourage people who are creative. If you're a artist, if you're a writer, whatever your passion is around creativity, it can be so healing because it felt to me when that was done, and also it in particular when everybody started to reach out, and I got so many emails from people I had feared on some level, maybe deep down inside, and I guess this goes back to your other question, that I was putting my life in front of everybody, a
Mhm.
life that I used to feel ashamed of and wanted to keep quiet and not let people know about. And suddenly I'm putting it out there. I am putting it out there, and yet nobody rejected me. If anything, people wanted to know more and they wanted to reach out to me. And I was so grateful for that. So all of it was so healing, every single bit. And it continues. Even these conversations I'm having now, the one I'm having with you, this really helps me to continue to heal.
Now, as you talk about, you've opened up a very private part of your life to the public and you've put it out on paper, you've put it out there. What do you hope readers will take away from the story? Well, your memoir, sorry.
Yes, I don't know that I had any particular ideas before it was over. I think I just hoped that people would like it, that they wouldn't totally hate it, and the complete opposite became true. So what I started to see, especially because I do talk to other people in what they call the NPE space, which are people who are adopted, people who've had DNA surprises like mine,
Mhm.
people who suddenly find out one of their parents isn't their parent. There's this whole space, and people do suffer in those spaces. I was shocked how many people, it may have happened a long time ago, yet it is still affecting them now. So that is in some ways the power of these secrets and discovering these things. And so what I started to see was at least my story seemed to be having an effect on some people, because they would write to me and tell me this or share something about the story with me. To me, connecting with other people is so powerful and it's so amazing. And if I can do that on any level, that's why I became an acupuncturist and really enjoyed helping people. It's why I help animals. I really love that. I get a lot back from doing that work. And now in this way, it's very powerful to see people saying to me, you know what, I grew up in Oklahoma. I grew up on a farm. I didn't have the experiences you had, but there was something in your story that was so similar to the way I grew up, and in some way they help heal a little bit more.
When we talk about healing and we talk about these surprise connections and how everyone's going to take away something a little bit different from your book, what was the most surprising emotion that you encountered when you had this information?
The most surprising emotion, I guess, because I didn't expect it, I was filled with gratitude. I still am. Even when we talk about it, gratitude. Oh, wow, this is amazing. Oh, and the other thing too is I discovered before, as I said, I was nervous and scared actually to ever share my story. In fact, so many of my friends have said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know all of this about you," because I'd kept it really quiet.
Mm.
But now everybody knew, and complete strangers knew, and I felt very grateful. And I also realized this is the power of sharing our stories and being just open and just saying, hey, this is who I am, because I no longer feel any doubt or feeling feeling self-conscious about who I am. So maybe that, I don't know what emotion that is, but no longer fearing who you are and being who I am is a really powerful experience. And I'm so grateful for that.
When we talk about having these powerful experiences, and I want to play in the world of what if just for a moment, how do you think your life might have been different if you had known about the truth about your adoption earlier?
How might it have been different? I've often thought to myself, I've gone through the different phases of my life and said this to myself. Okay, what would it have been like if you knew when you were a kid at 5 years old, which is what they recommend, I believe, now for parents to really start sharing these things with their children if they're adopted. But I believe my parents weren't the kind of parents that would have sat there and said to me, this is what happened. This is why we did it. Share your emotions. My parents were trying to survive. They were just surviving, working really hard, and providing not only for their own children and their own family, but for other families. They were the matriarch and patriarch of a very large extended family. And they were also providing for these people. So I believe I may have felt a little as though nobody could really understand, because I really wouldn't have had anybody to talk to. I don't believe they would have had me see a therapist. Nobody saw therapists in those days. So that might not have worked so well. And then I think that in my 20s, I know people don't believe me, but I was a pretty angry person in my 20s. And I and I know my parents feared if I had known then that I would have taken off and gone to try to find my birth mother, who had her own issues. And I'm very fortunate to not have been raised by her. And then in my 30s, I had a very difficult marriage, so that didn't work out. And I had too much going on there. And in my 40s, I got remarried, but I have two stepchildren. So we were just really busy with our lives. So in many ways, at age 57, it was the most powerful time in my life. I was already out with several books. I was speaking in front of people about animal, the
Mm.
animal rights and animal advocacy, and I felt very powerful internally. And so therefore, when this news hit me, yeah, I felt like I bent really like a tree, just bent, but I came back. And so I still feel I should have known earlier, but I sometimes think, no, now was the very best time. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it does, and it kind of already answers another question for me of do you believe that the idea of certain truths are revealed at the right time? And your answer was yes, absolutely. Um,
I
but it's neat
do.
that you touch on these parts of, stepchildren and these family pieces. And in a lot of households, and I can say to mine for sure, if my mother, father, or grandparent said, that's your cousin, that's your uncle, that's your aunt, we weren't told any different, whether or not you were or weren't, and we treated you like family because that's what we were told to do, and it was to kind of shut your mouth. It's family. We'll figure it out. So it's neat that that's still this message is coming through when we look at the patriarch and matriarch family to it. But when we look back on Junkyard Girl, and this touches on themes of ancestry, family secrets, your memoirs, but in today's world where we have that DNA testing and genealogy are more accessible, what advice would you give to someone who might be in a similar situation to you that's on that brink of discovering a life-changing family secret? Should they do the test? Should they do the ancestry? Leave well enough alone? What would you tell them?
Well, it's almost like I knew you were going to ask me this question because I literally just found this statistic. And it was 3 to 10% of people who take direct to consumer DNA tests experience misattributed paternity. 3 to 10% means they're going to find out something.
Wow.
That's a pretty high score if you ask me. And to be honest, so many people have shared their stories. So I always think to myself, I did it for fun. I wanted to know actually because my mother had said we had a certain amount of Jewish lineage in our family,
Mhm.
and I'm Mexican American, but I thought, oh, that's really cool. Let me go find that out. But I now realize if I was to listen to anybody, I'd say just take a deep breath. Realize you may discover something you never, ever, ever would have ever thought could happen to you. I still can't believe after 5 years this happened to me. I sometimes wake up thinking, wow, that happens to other people on weird TV shows or something, not me. So I'm just saying if it happened to me, it could happen to anybody else. So maybe before you do it, just consider you may discover something. You may discover something you don't like. You may discover your parents have lied. Other people have not told you the truth. So I just would say, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying take a breath.
I love that you said that. And I want to ask you this. I know that there's a lot of animals out there, a lot of pets that people can have. And we went over, the pigs and the cats, and we've touched on some of these other animals that people might not know about. Is there an animal or pet that you can think of that still kind of raises the hair on your arm in a creepy way, even though you love them, but you're just kind of like, you're nice, but you're nice 10 feet away, not necessarily in my hand.
Yes, it's true, snakes. I have a friend who is in the area where I live in Santa Fe. He is the snake guy. He's known as the snake guy. And the first time I ever met him, he had a completely non-venomous snake. What is it? I forget what it was, but a bull snake. And he said, "Oh, do you want to hold it?" And I was like, I remember and then he goes, "Oh, and hold the other one too." And I've got two snakes on me. So I would love to just say, "Oh, yes, they're warm and cuddly, but they're not for me." But I love them and I would never hurt any of them.
Snakes can stay at an arm's distance.
Yes, and we have them here, and to be honest, because we live in the Southwest, so I do see them from time to time, and what I do is this is what I do. I try with any animal to look at it as an individual.
Hmm.
I mean, and so when I start doing that, I see that things change. If I were to see a snake in my yard, I might just stop and go, okay, you can look at it from behind the door, but just look at it. It is an individual. It's doing its best to stay alive. It is part of the world just as much as you are. And when I start doing that, I start to soften and I feel myself, just my anxiety go down and I feel calmer.
I love that you said that. I really do. I think that's an amazing outlook to have on it of they're just here trying to make it through just like everybody else. And
Absolutely.
Carlene, where can people learn more about you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is animalhumanhealth.com, or they can go to, and this is my hub, and so all my social media is on there. Everything you could possibly want to know about me is there. Also, I have a new Substack newsletter that is called Positive Impact, and that's spelled PAWSITIVE, Positive Impact. And all of my books can be online, so people can order them there. And I believe that's it.
Carlene, if we asked your friends or your husband and said, what's something that people tend to misunderstand about you the most? What do you think they'd say?
You know what you're making me think of? Maybe I misunderstand this about me. It's a joke in our family and everybody, because people say I play pickleball and people say to me, "You are so competitive." And I'm like, "I am? Really? Why do people know that about me when they meet me after like a few minutes?" So maybe I think I'm misunderstood, but the truth is everybody says that. And I know that's sort of a reverse thing about what you've asked, but I find that to be kind of curious.
Okay. And what's something that scares you the most?
Hmm. Well, I honestly, I have a big concern about the world that we're leaving for our children and those beyond. I actually just became a step grandparent.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
I thank you. And I've always been an animal person, but somehow this little being is really kind of making its way into my heart. And I have to wonder, what is the world going to be like when she's my age?
And I have time for one last question for you today with Coffee with Chris. And thank you so much for being here with me. It's what makes you smile?
So many things. My dog in particular, this is the one thing that if I really tune into her, and this is why I say just tune in to these animals, she's always happy no matter what is happening. She's joyful. So she always makes me smile. And so, what is that love? Love makes me smile.
Amazing. And as I said, that was the last question I had for you today on Coffee with Chris. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Everyone out there, the dog is my doctor, cat as my nurse. Pause. And don't even forget about the Junkyard Girl, which is the newest one out, and the new one, which her first draft is going to be done on Sunday for, which hopefully then will go right into production, of course. Everyone out, get out there to find out the human animal connection. We'll post all the links, of course. Thank you so much again for being here. Everyone remember to smile to inspire and have a fantastic day.